That's not a good shot. I don't think that's me.
Full right!
Full right!
So I'm probably in the water. That's it. That's gonna go in the hole, maybe.
I guess that 5 wood goes farther than
185.
Oh, how'd I get into M&A? Well, after college, I worked for a startup in Des Moines, which for a couple of years, and we sold it, and I moved to Chicago for the world's oldest reason. My beautiful wife of 40 years didn't want to live in Des Moines. So I got into banking in Chicago at the old Boulevard Bank, very old line bank in Chicago at the time. You know, was there and was at Harris Bank for a while.
Not investment banking, just traditional
Commercial lending,
yeah.
Highly leveraged transactions was what they called them at the time, LBOs. Yeah, I'm back there. And I did it for 8 years. So I had done a startup and then banking at 2 banks for 7 or 8 years. And I financed the spinoff of Duff and Phelps as a HLT, a highly leveraged transaction. So I literally, I was asked to, a guy that I had worked with earlier in my career, Steve Burt, they were going to buy out Duff and Phelps as a spin out. And I pitched on the leverage package. Funny footnote, I didn't win the leverage package, but I got to know him pretty well. And a couple weeks after closing, Duff and Phelps at the time was about 40 people, 19 million in revenues. Our old chairman, Chet Gugis, a great man, said, why don't you come over and work for us? And I'll be honest with you, I was going to take the job. Harris Bank had really treated me well, now known as Bank of Montreal. I really enjoyed it. But there's a senior guy at Harris Bank that, rest in peace, is no longer with us, but called me up to his office and said, you know, Dave, I am 50 years old. I got 2 kids in college, and I kind of wish I would have done something different than commercial lending. He also pointed out that commercial lending was consolidating, and there was going to be less jobs, less banks, and he suggested that I explore the job with Duff and Phelps, which is funny because I didn't know he knew they had offered me a job. This is what I think young people forget. You know, people that go through training programs together stay in touch. And Chet Gugis had gone through training with the chief credit officer for Harris Bank, who said, Dave, if I was you, I'd take that job.
Wow.
Everything he does turns to gold, and you'll be bored as heck here within years. I was a little surprised by that. Thought about it and said, what the heck? And joined him about 3 weeks later. But it was great advice from this gentleman, you know, to take the risk. I had 2 kids, I think a newborn and a 2-year-old. You know, my wife was mildly supportive, wondering what I was doing. But, you know, the biggest theme was commercial lending was going to keep consolidating. And yet, if I went into M&A, middle market M&A, I was going to take advantage of all that consolidation in other industries. And I just thought, you know, the guy that at Harris Bank that suggested it said, go to where the puck's going to be. And that was probably the best thing that stuck in my head. And so I gave it a shot, and I've never looked back. It has just been, it's so much fun to work with business owners, you know, the whole ecosystem around a deal I just love. So I took the plunge, went to Duff and Phelps, now known as Kroll, and it was interesting. It was right before it was in 1997, and had a good couple years run, and then we hit the Y2K craziness, and I remember thinking I had made a big mistake.
Just because it was slow?
It was slow, and then we ended up selling to a small bank, and it was, I thought, not necessarily a smart deal.
Duff sold to a smaller bank?
Small bank in Connecticut, and you know, the guys ahead of me made some okay money, but I, you know, was like, wow, maybe I should have stayed. But the beauty of it was right then our chairman, Chet, and Steve Burt, who I've worked for years, said, okay, just get out on the road, go bring in business. And I literally spent the next 25 years doing 130 flights a year and marketing every week and building long-term relationships, trying to be a resource to people, and, you know, be at the Quad Cities, Des Moines, Kansas City, Omaha, Dallas, you know, Milwaukee. And by God, it worked. Fast forward 27 years, I still work with Steve Burt, great guy. Now owned by private equity, but our senior management, Jake Silverman and Miller Gottdiener, have been wonderfully supportive. It's kind of interesting to look back at 60. 30 years went by pretty quickly. But, I don't know if you call it an overnight success or what, but...
Well, not the type of travel and marketing you're doing. I think most people would, but they don't see all the ground and pound.
Well, it's interesting. You and I were talking about some of the, where you're at. And, it's not instant gratification. You got to be a resource to people. You got to help. You got to build relationships.
Are you a generalist?
Yeah, I am a generalist, but I do specialize somewhat in manufacturing and distribution. Originally, I specialized in printing companies. So, you know what happened to printing companies. I did some IT staffing early on before Y2K, and that became less of a business. So just by a good network and good referrals, I have kind of remained pretty busy for a long period of time. But pretty much preponderance in the manufacturing and distribution, a lot of building products company has been where I've kind of ended up spending my time. But we've also gotten a lot bigger. When we were 40 people, you kind of did what you could, and now we have different verticals and consumer and healthcare, and aerospace and defense, general industrial, business services. So, there's a lot of times now in my career, if I bring in someone, I have to bring in the expert, which is, actually great. It's a force multiplier and really, it's really good for the business. But it's been kind of a change. I think people your age, I think you said too, gotta have some specialty.
Something.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of truth to that. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would have specialized more.
Yeah.
You
can still be a generalist. It's just helpful to...
I think it's easier to be a generalist later on in your career if you're getting those long-term calls and referrals and opportunities. But I think younger in your career, when you're spending all that time, you really should probably try to focus on one, because that's going to do better for you 20, 30 years down the road.
The deals you're finding, are you going direct to companies, or is it a lot of
when I started, I literally got on a plane and started going to places and put ourselves out as a resource if their clients were thinking about doing M&A. And what they had me do originally is I was calling on attorneys, accountants, bankers, money managers, key influencers in different towns. And you think about that 30 years ago when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Now you fast forward, those people that I was talking to 25, 30 years ago are kind of in the positions to hand you those types of deals and opportunities. And I don't want to say hand you, but I sold a deal last year in Omaha that the business owner said that his accounting firm, his law firm, and his money manager all said use Dave Althoff. And it was like kind of a really fun thing to happen. So, I wish I would have specialized more, but, maybe I specialized in just getting out there and knocking on doors for 30 years.
Well, you were going to tell me about how you set goals.
Yeah, I forget who, years ago, somebody told me to read the book, The One Thing. And, the joke is it's from that old movie, City Slickers, where Curly says you got to find your one thing. But basically the theory is every Sunday morning you need to think what your goals are, and more importantly, what's the one thing you need to do to push that forward. A life goal and a relationship or a business goal, figure out what your goals are, and then every morning ask the question, what's the one thing to move those goals forward, and do that first. So if I'm trying to close a deal and we're purchase agreement comments, trying to close the deal, we got Q of E questions, trying to close the deal, working capital issues, whatever it is. Some people call it kiss the frog, whatever.
Simplifying.
Do the one thing that's going to move the ball forward.
Yeah.
And that, can, as I said, can be both in life too.
Are you writing those out for, you doing annual goals and then...
Annual goals, quarterly goals, and every Sunday morning at about 5 a.m.
Revisit it.
And you look at your annual, which, have morphed over time. It used to be amount of fees that you'd bring in, new clients, number of cold calls, different stuff like that. Now, literally one thing to really enjoy my new grandson.
Yeah.
It's one of my top goals. A lot of people have a big list, and they do the stuff that's easy, or do the stuff that they think they can knock off. And I'm like, no. What's the one thing you can do to move this deal forward?
Needle movers.
Yeah. And if you're not doing that, what are you doing?
Well, it probably gives clarity to your other goals too. If you're doing that one, then the easy ones they're easy.
Easy ones are easy, yeah. And also it allows you to, and everybody's different. I am brilliant at 6 in the morning, and so I am doing the things that matter most.
Early.
Yeah, when I'm smart. And I know other people are totally flipped, you know, and I do my best work at night. It's totally fine. I just have found that type of clarity, you know, on the one thing, I have found it to keep me very, very, very organized and very efficient.
Yeah.